is 9/11 Freefall.
Welcome to another episode of 9/11 Freefall. I'm your host, Andy Steele, and happy State of the Union Week out there. This is airing the same week that Obama is making his State of the Union address in this great pageant that we celebrate every year. And, of course, apparently the State of the Union is good. It is always good every year. I've never heard anyone say that it's bad, so I know you're all very happy to hear that. You're all very reassured that everything is going well here in post 9/11 America. Your liberties are not being threatened, and your government's not lying to you. They're not lying to you about the crime of the century, which is, of course, 9/11 and the cover-up of the evidence that those three buildings that we watched fall in New York that day, buildings 1, 2, and 7 of the World Trade Center, were brought down in controlled demolitions, because the state of our union is strong, and your government would never lie to you about something like that, despite all the evidence that it is. You may have noticed that AE911Truth has a new website. Well, it's not a new website. The web address is still the same, but it's got an entirely new look, more polished look, more professional, and we're going to be talking about it tonight with our guest, Jeff Long. He's a former Operation Mockingbird insider. As you may remember, he was on a previous show talking about that, and he's one of the guys that helped devise that new look. He'll be explaining the new website and kind of how they came to that final result, kind of the process and some of the thoughts that went into making the website. So it's very interesting, and if you're somebody that's looking to design websites, get into that kind of business, it's good to listen to him too, get a little bit of a feel for the kind of thought process that goes into these kinds of things. Now, this is another long interview, so I'm going to be playing that for you in just a moment or so. Before I do play the interview for you, of course, we're going to do what we do every week. We're going to take 10 seconds of silence to remember the victims of 9/11 and their families and all the people who died in the wars that followed 9/11. We're going to do that beginning now. And that is 10 seconds. Jeff Long is a former Operation Mockingbird insider with Air Force Intelligence. He's been on the show to talk about that before. You can hear that in the archives. He's also a member of AE911Truth's web team, and he's one of the guys who created the new version of the web page that debuted last week. He's on this week to talk about that and other things. Jeff, welcome back to the show.
Thanks.
All right, now briefly tell our audience a little bit more about yourself, sort of reintroduce yourself for people who may have not heard that previous episode, and your history before coming into this fight.
I guess basically started out really young, got roped into working for U.S. intelligence at 18. Did that in the very end stages of the Cold War. That was my job was tasked towards fighting the Soviet Union at the time, the Big Scourge. So I did that for about 6 years until I decided to resign, just having a conflict with a lot of the main U.S. intelligence agencies I was working with that were my clients at the time, CIA, NSA, NRO, all the big wigs on the block. So I resigned. It took about a year and a half. They weren't happy about it, and so it got really nasty at the end. But I was finally able to get away safely after having a Florida congressman step in to at least make it a little bit easier for me to step aside and get out of that problem. From that point and ever since, and doing what I was doing for them, I was doing design and what would be perceived as marketing, and basically anything marketing related, no matter what it is. It's propaganda, whether it's from the bad guys' side to what we do on our side. Everything is propaganda, as Bernays has laid out so well in describing exactly what it is and how it works in his book called, entitled Propaganda. So that is definitely somebody that if some people are unaware of Edward Bernays, they should read that book. It's available online, and you could read it as a PDF, but it definitely breaks it down, showing you what the other team is doing, and for all the resources and the monies that they have access to in the black budgets. You can see why it's so hard to do what we do, but it's so important to have this kind of presence online, which translates right into the website that we have, the new version of the website, and the rest of our online presence, which I deal with mainly outside of the web team. The web team, there's about 4 of us. Kelly David, the COO, oversees the project team that we report to, and Steve Olson, our web team leader. It's unfortunate he couldn't be with us here today as planned, but he is very, very, very sick with a cold or something, a flu. So it's just me today explaining this side of it, at least the design side, and not so much the back end workings of how a content management system that we use operates, and the back end of the Joomla platform, which we're making use of. So it's a little bit different, but I've been doing this ever since the 87, when I was, like I said, pulled in by U.S. intelligence, recruited back then, and always been in the graphic design side, because that's what I had studied even after coming back and getting out, and worked for in the marketing departments for large architectural and engineering and project management firms over the past couple decades, along with working as creative director in the medical education side for big pharma and all the creepiness behind what it is that they're doing. So I did a lot of that out of DC and Virginia, and as well as in parts of it in Maryland and the District of Criminals itself. So I've been doing this for 2.5, maybe 3 decades now. So the design and marketing side for the most part.
The District of Criminals. I love that. It amazes me how much work goes into trying to capture that little bit of attention span that people have when they're passing by things, or when they're flipping through channels or flipping through websites now on the internet. How much work goes into just manipulating what people see, just from the other side, and crafting the message. And they always talk about there being a war on for your mind. That they're really not kidding. I mean, the shooting wars happen after everybody's run out of ideas. The real wars happen every day in the propaganda, the Edward Bernays style manipulation of mass consciousness to try to shift people towards certain aims and agendas. And we certainly saw it in the aftermath of 9/11 and during 9/11 certainly. So yeah, I mean, this is an important part of the battle for waking people up to this really important issue, and I'm glad that you are on the team. You're a tremendous asset. Now, with the webpage, AE911Truth, we had a webpage before. Why did we need a new webpage?
Well, to boil it down, apart from needing a new design and look, the Joomla engine that we're running on was very old, outdated, and so old that it's no longer supported. And we're many, many generations away from that now, because the website has been around for a long time in its current reiteration. And over that time, as volunteers come into the organization in many different aspects, everybody wants to get their information put up there prominent. So the old website just started getting too much. It was getting cluttered with too much on the front end, so it was dragging it down. And the thing to remember, just what you brought up a few seconds ago, is that you have approximately 7 to 8 seconds to grab somebody's attention when they get to a website. And if you have any issues there, and it's not dynamic enough, and you don't have the marketing to capture somebody's attention, or if it just loads too slow, or you have a ton of ads on your website, somebody is just going to, studies show, back out of the site and just move on to the next one from whatever search engine that they're using or however it is that they got to your site. You've got such a limited window to get and grab somebody's attention so that they stay on the website and then start poking around for the information. And the old version of the website was adequate for getting the information out, but it just started getting too cluttered, started slowing down, it's unsupported, and from what we heard from most of we always got negative comments coming into the web team about the old website, and that it was confusing. There was a shotgun effect with the amount of information all over the front page, and people were having trouble navigating and finding focus, and you just can't have that when you're trying to get out some type of information. And there was just a drastic change over the last year that we discussed in getting a new site up and what we needed to do. And when I jumped into this in about April of this past year, we had, after figuring out what the core target market was for this new website, which is completely different than what anybody else had thought of before. And, since we had pared down the web team to such a small core now, we have Rocco who deals mostly with the international sites and the movie sites that we have that are listed down at the bottom of the newer website. He deals with some of the YouTube analytics, as well as Facebook analytics and Facebook ads. There's just a very small team working on this project, and what we came up with in the beginning in discussing was who the target market was supposed to be, who our core audience was that we were going towards. And at this point, we decided that it was for A&E's mission, trying to get the information out to new people, as well as an eventual new investigation. We have to reach and engage a completely new audience, and we can't be speaking to what's known as the choir, the church members, because they all know where the information is. They come to the site, they have certain areas that they focus on, whether it's news and articles, which is the most viewed area. We had to figure out how to engage a new group of people, because we have on our subscribers list, for the people that are members of AE911Truth.org, that do sign up for news and information. When they sign up on one of our subscribe links, it gives them access to all the different types of information that we put out, whether it's the monthly newsletter, regular news articles, or action alerts, bulletins, something targeted to their state, or as small as something in their own town, depending on whatever the information is that we're trying to get out to everybody. We've got 49,000. We're just shy of 50,000 subscribers as far as the email list is concerned to get information out. And then we have on our Facebook page, we just breached a huge milestone at 250,000 subscribers. It's around 253,000 subscribers now to our Facebook page alone, and that doesn't count the 18, almost 19,000 on our Rethink branded Facebook page. So that's a different market segment that are not subscribing to the content, that are getting it a different way, and 5 times as large as our current subscriber database. So going with that aspect and trying to pull those people in to the website specifically, and and I took this into consideration when with the work that you did in getting Richard onto C-SPAN, and the work that we did in the background, you, Kelly, and I, and a couple others, getting the information ready for an onslaught of people coming to the website after that TV show, after getting that groundbreaking piece, that interview on there with Richard talking about Building 7 for 45 minutes. I mean, right now that their video on the C-SPAN webpage is right around 280,000 views, which I think is their highest viewed video ever on their site. Could be wrong, but for what we're into and what we're talking about, and being on a DC-centric TV show, that's a major coup. So getting people, that we knew that people were coming to the website after that, and we had to get some evidence put together in a better format for people to understand what it is that we're doing. And because the website is so cluttered, we knew, and we always heard in the back end that the website doesn't look professional. I'd literally say that 100% of all the emails that we get to the web team talking about the problems with the website are just negative. We never heard anything positive about the existing website at the time, and even though we get even though the site's been up for about a week, we've gotten literally 3 negative email comments about the new site, and they almost sound like carbon copies of each other, which is strange in of itself. But even if we had 50% negative email comments about the new site, it would still be a 50% improvement over what we're doing. So the idea and the rationale, moving up to a much newer Joomla engine for the back end of this site, and the idea was to engage a newer audience, people that were newer to the information, people that would have been coming to it from that C-SPAN interview afterwards, those kind of people. And we needed something that, at least the way that I was designing it out in my head, something that was more professional, something that looked like some of the architecture and engineering firms for whom I've worked before as creative director overseeing the marketing department, and something that could be taken more seriously, something comparatively would look like some of those other firms out there, because we are a huge group of architects and engineers, these professionals that are putting their credibility on the line, talking about the implausibility of the official conspiracy theory put out by the media and the government. So with people coming to the site, we needed something that looks more like a professional architectural engineering firm, as opposed to something that looked more like a refrigerator, cluttered with a bunch of magnets. And as we've heard from plenty of people coming from the outside, that's what it looked like, and it was a little bit confusing.
Just to reiterate, and I understand that logic perfectly, is that there are people, the choir, the people that have already waken up to this and know about it and just check it out for the news. They're getting that information from other sources, from the Facebook page, from newsletters, number of different ways that they can get access to the articles. And the articles are available on the website too. So it's not like they just disappeared from the website. But what you're targeting now are the new people, because, C-SPAN was nothing, because we're going to keep on going. We're going to reach even more and more people now. And so when people come to the website, they're going to see this big, bold, brand new looking, professional organization. And that's what I really like about this website, is that it doesn't look like every other 911 Truth site. And I'm not criticizing other 911 Truth groups for their webpage. I mean, the situation is that this thing happened, 9/11. We were lied to about it. It was a controlled demolition. The government covered it up. And so a lot of people, ordinary people, had to come together and create some sort of a resistance here and make web pages from bare bones knowledge of being able to do this, and we had what we had, and it built on itself, and it's improved. But like with AE911Truth being such a professional organization, having so many experts and so much credibility behind it now, we are at the forefront of the 9/11 science truth movement, and so we have to essentially act and think like we are one of the major groups out there, like something like a Greenpeace or the NRA, along those lines, and start talking the talk and walking the walk. And when I look at the new website, that's what I see. I see what the other side tries to create. I see stuff on the professional level that you might see from like a political organization, somebody trying to push a certain candidate, or maybe some kind of special interest group, like MoveOn.org, something like that, that's usually gets involved in politics and backing certain candidates. And I see us on at least on a web page level on the same level as these groups. And so I just want to commend you. I think that's great. It looks just like what the opposition tries to do, except that we're on the side of right here. We mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, about how much work goes into grabbing people's attention, focusing on like one little aspect of a web page, like one little box, let's say. A lot of work goes into that, just on how to create it, what color to make it, things like that. Why were certain things done on the website? Like, for instance, can you go over the site and just talk about specific examples and why certain things were laid out in the way that they were?
Oh, sure. Yeah, that ties into what we did in the beginning of summer. The initial couple mock-ups and websites that I was creating at the time, even though striking, engaging, and my whole mindset was something that was architectural and engineering related, but also scientific, to look at some of the other science sites out there and get at least have the same look and feel. But then a couple of us went to a conference in DC in August, and this conference, based off of the platform that we use for our website and our email, it's social media and marketing. It runs our database, and it's a platform, a software platform, and they're based out of DC, that is specifically for activists. So it is used by the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, which are basically the same thing. But the other groups out there, Greenpeace, some of the others that you mentioned, all these other small nonprofits, very large nonprofits, use this as a platform to engage their core audience and manage subscribers. Say you want to target somebody in Vermont for some type of action because of how they signed up, and with that basic data in the background, you can send them specifically an email to do something in that area. So it's what the big boys on the block have been using for a long time, and how they manage their database, and this one's specifically targeted towards activists trying to affect some sort of change. So with this conference and going there and seeing what we're doing, and some of the webinars that I'd been studying up on over the summer while putting this together, what we had learned was the statistics that we were getting from the social media platforms and the speakers that they brought in from all over the country to discuss what's new with social media, how to use it and engage it, and use it to our benefit. the main thing that we walked away from was that even though I was designing something that was brand new and dynamic, a better presence for A&E to put out there on the web to challenge the other people out there and the perception that we have and the audience, the people that have never been here before, to the site, was that what I was designing was not a responsive website. And responsive meaning that it had to translate, one website had to translate from my desktop, my 30-inch screen that I'm designing certain things on, down to my laptop, and then I had to and the website has to translate over to a tablet, such as the something sitting here on the side, to a smartphone. If it doesn't move in that fashion, you don't have a responsive website. If it doesn't scale proportionally and with ease of use, and you're going to lose out on a huge portion of your audience. And the main thing that we learned that kept sticking in my head was that at that time, the statistics were showing that 58% of all website traffic right now is being viewed on a 2-inch iPhone. I mean, the iPhone is obviously the highest market share when it comes to smartphone technology for looking at this type of information. But if you can't translate it and see it and look at it on a 2-inch wide screen, then you're going to lose 58% of that market share of the people that are coming to your website for information. And the old website, as well as like the old emails that we would send out, it was a tiny little screen snapshot of what you were seeing on the desktop version translated down. That just shrunk down, and it did not translate well. And you can't, and for the younger core market, and 58% is a huge market share. And we saw over the summer, from the time we got in late fall, they were looking at numbers getting closer to 68% as we got closer to the holidays and shopping statistics. I mean, there's so much that goes in the back end of something like this when it comes to marketing and making sure something like this is going to work properly. That seeing those numbers and what we're missing out on, and the fact that nonprofits around the world last year had pulled in donations $346 billion. That's money that people were giving up to their favorite charities. They were getting tax credits for it. Just like Architects and Engineers for 911Truth is a 501c3 nonprofit education organization. There are certain parameters set on what you can and cannot do as a tax-exempt organization like that. But the people that do join, become members, subscribe, give any kind of donation, they get a tax credit for it, as if it was Greenpeace or anybody else. So we knew that we were missing out on just the donation page itself. It was not mobile ready. There was not an easy way for people to flip with their fingers, to click on a certain radio button, make a quick donation, and then move on if that's what they wanted to do. And the target market, younger, people on the go, running around looking at the information, it needed to be readily accessible for somebody who was looking at it quickly. And the other aspect that we had to tailor into it was the attention span. Like I said, it takes 7-8 seconds for somebody to jump on board or leave your website, and this new website loads really quickly on a phone. And we know, because of social media, that's the backbone of everything I do for A&E right now. I publish and manage and run, I guess, as the social media director, the Facebook page, the content that goes in and out of there, update somewhat some of the information on the YouTube page. I've got the Rethink site to update when I can on that side. It's Facebook page. the emails that go out that everybody gets in their inbox. I mean, I'm designing and putting out that content, the newsletters. So there's a ton of information that is going out, and I mean, and that takes up most of my time, most of my day is putting out the content as well as researching it and making sure that the right information is getting out. And there's so much other information that comes in that has to be marketed and put back out. And maybe a targeted state that's going to do something. We do a lot of that in the background. It comes down to attention span. And we know with this type of availability now on your phone, which is basically a massive computer that, you know, happens to make phone calls as well, that there's so much information out there that you've got a short time span to grab that attention, and people are just going to be flipping through that information. And we have to make sure that we engage somebody quickly. It can't just be text information. We know that the brain processes images 60,000 times quicker than just text, and so that's why the Twitter page, same thing, that manage that, putting out these same informational graphics going out the same way, because they've shown studies that as people are flipping through it, people stop on the images of something that catches their eye, that is going to hopefully get them to click on that rather than the other information that's out there. And it's it's the same stuff I've been doing for your radio promos for 9/11 Freefall. Changing that out a little bit.
I was going to mention that, folks. The great pictures that you see in the YouTube videos you listen right now and on Facebook, Jeff is the one who makes those. And they're very good, very eye-catching. And I especially like the one for the Christmas episode. That is the coolest looking demonic Santa Claus I've ever seen. But what you say about the mobile phones is right on the money. And it's funny for me because I have an iPhone sitting in my closet. A coworker gave me one. He had an extra one, and I've never updated it. I still have my old-fashioned flip phone. Actually, everybody makes fun of me because of this. I call him Flippy. I actually have a name for it now. The back is falling off of it, and I do need to update this. So I'm not in the elite class here of people who get on their little gadgets and do the stuff with their fingers. But you're right about the old pages. When I did access AE911Truth or saw people accessing it on their little iPhones, they had to move their fingers around like magic and make the thing magnify a bunch of times. But while you were talking, I was wondering, why is 58% of people coming from their phones? Why are they going to AE or to any, nonprofit or just website, web traffic? Why are they coming on their phones? And I imagine this. I imagine that somebody who is at work, in front of their computer, they're doing work while they're there. Most of the time they're doing something having to do with their job. When they come home, they're probably, and again, I'm just theorizing here, but they're probably, either watching Netflix or watching something on YouTube and not doing a lot of surfing beyond those sites, right? But now imagine that you have some bureaucrat or some media person or somebody in academia who gets told about AE911Truth, maybe gets handed some brochure or something from our group, and they may not look at it while they're at work because they have work stuff to do, but they may be on the subway. They may be on a ride home somewhere or at a restaurant grabbing a quick bite to eat because they don't feel like cooking for that night. And so they're on their phone basically killing time, and they decide at that point to check out the website. And so that's why it absolutely needs to be visible on these new little gadget phones that are out now that everybody is using. So no, you're completely correct on that and the reasoning, and why the change needed to take place. Are there going to be any more changes or any further improvements to the website coming up? Anything else that we can look forward to?
Well, the site's evolving, and we don't have everything in place for it for this launch. We wanted to get it up in time for the membership drive, so that at least it was in tandem. They could see that there is a new look, and trying to explain that the core group of AE supporters is not the target market for this. It's usable for them. It's completely redesigned for people who are coming to the site for the first time, and to make sure that it does work alongside some of the largest nonprofits on the planet, or also known as NGOs, non-governmental organizations, which we know that a lot of those NGOs are actually government organizations, and some of our favorite spy agencies masquerading as these nonprofits. But with these larger sites that are out there, and for the information that we got from this conference and continually as it evolved over this past year, is that they're following the same basic template as far as you have to have a prominent donate button, newsletter subscribe. That's how you're going to pull people in. I mean, all social media for all these nonprofits, whether it's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, the new evolving ones that are coming out, are supposed to direct everybody back to the website, and then that's where you want to engage them and grab their information, get them to sign up for a newsletter and email so that they can get in contact, because that is actually the apart from social media to the website, the highest traffic area that where any nonprofit, any organization, anybody is engaging somebody on a daily basis, excuse me, is through email. And at the turn of the beginning of last decade, everybody thought email was dead, but as it comes around full circle, everything that we're doing is basically trying to get somebody to a certain area to where we can start sending them email, because that's what people use most on their phones, apart from coming to the website, is checking their email. That is the highest traffic area as they're flipping through, and that's what people check the most, to where you're going to get the information out to somebody else and engage whoever it is that's following you, and to get them to take some sort of action for whatever it is that's going on. So with this new site, in of itself, it's supposed to be an introduction to somebody brand new to A&E, to 9/11, to this information, and a soft approach to landing page to give them an introduction as far as basic evidence, the frequently asked questions, the things that were sort of hidden on the older version of the website because there was so much other information there for everybody. But a video page, which that's going to evolve, and with newer technology and stuff, things came out beginning of this month, just a couple weeks ago. New things came about on the Joomla side that we could use on ours as far as new evolving technology that wasn't available a couple weeks ago, much less over the summer when we were putting this website together. So it's going to continually evolve, but the main focus with this front landing page is as an introduction to somebody new. I mean, we've got the experts on the front end, mostly architects and engineers, structural engineers, giving credibility to what it is that we're talking about in a format that looks like a lot of, as I heard from some of the positive emails. I mean, we've been hit with a lot of email. Like I said, we got 3 negative emails and hundreds of positive emails about the new site and how easy it is to navigate, cleaner, easier to get around, social media, prominent on there, the focus, the mission. That it's the proper introduction that you as somebody could send out to somebody else, going, hey, well, here's a site, here's some information, you might want to check this out. And it doesn't, again, it not to denigrate other 911Truth sites that are out there, but since we're the largest and most prominent out of that group, it has to look professional, and we have to look that way to these people that are coming to the site that hear about the tinfoil aspects of what it is that we're doing. And with the amount of the 2,300 plus architects and engineers that are verified that have signed up on A&E's petition page, it's got to be a format and a billboard for people coming to it to see that there are real professionals in their fields that are asking questions that go against the official conspiracy theory that's been put out for us to digest, and that they're serious questions. So it's got to look like the competition, and we have to look like we're serious about the business, about the science, about the information, and something that you could send one of your friends to, some of your skeptical family members, somebody else that can see the front page, get the information pretty quick, what we're about. And then from there, through the tab menu at the top and some of the other buttons and some of the other links, go deeper into the site, as opposed to the old site having core in the middle, the news articles for people to flip to. I mean, there were so many different colors and things pushing around everywhere. It was a little confusing. But in this format, everybody that is unaware of the information can get an idea of what the organization is about, and then they can go deeper into those videos, into those news articles, into the technical articles, so that they're not hit over the head, slapped in the face in the beginning, that it's a softer approach, so that we don't look the way that they always try to demonize us in the media, and relating back to the Operation Mockingbird program, which is based out of a CIA program back in the 40s, birthed out of the OSS prior to them before that, that we have to use their tools against them, what is provided to us, which they're using a lot of the same technology, at least on the public front as far as the internet is concerned. Our version of the internet, and not even talking about net neutrality and everything else that the White House is putting out now when it comes to alleged freedom of speech, and we can see how that goes.
Right, and I want to just add a point in there, too, about using the same techniques that the other side is using. I mean, they're using it because it works, and there seems to be sometimes, not everybody, just a minority of people who, if you do anything that is similar to what the other side does, not in terms of what you're saying or the message you're putting out, but in terms of just, how you present information or the way you lay out a web page, for instance, they have this gut reaction to say, "Oh my God, you're just like them. You're doing what the other side does. That's sacrilegious. That's bad." Well, I mean, saying that is like saying, "Well, you wore a tie to the debate, and your opponent is wearing a tie also. How dare you? You should wear a ratty T-shirt instead to show how original and rebellious you are." No, the other side does things like this because it works, and this is the kind of stuff that we need to do to reach more and more people. So, I mean, yeah, I commend you for it, and I appreciate you also bringing up the issue with updating or getting evidence on the front page of the website the night before Richard was on C-SPAN, because it was difficult for a newcomer, even somebody who might be skeptical and maybe just be coming into it out of anger that they're seeing a person talking about this on television that morning. It's difficult for them to find the evidence on that page, and it should be there prominently on the front. And again, Richard did a great job that day. However, seeing is believing, and there's certain things that you just got to be able to see in order to get the full story, to get the full argument there. And something else you mentioned too was about featuring the experts, making them prominent. And on the new webpage, it's almost like a digital Mount Rushmore of all of the experts who are, in Experts Speak Out, people who comprise our petition. Over 2,000 building experts have signed it, but it's got pictures of them and lists certain things about them. So I thought that was a great idea. How hard was it to make this page, though? I mean, you've talked about it a little, but I mean, how difficult was it to kind of come to some final product here and do all of this trial and error and figure out what works?
It's taken months, and like I said, Steve, the web team leader, he does the back end, the architecture. He deals with the engineering side, and I guess in this aspect I would be the architect. I'm just trying to make it look pretty, make it digestible for somebody else, and he's making it work in the back end. This is a Joomla platform. It's a content management system. It's what or any company would be using as far as software to manage a website, where you have many people in the organization that have access to the back end of the website to publish. My old architecture and engineering firm in DC, where I was creative director, I had the company had 1,800 personnel. I had 30 satellite offices that I had to oversee across the country, where we were putting out bid proposals for different types of project work, which was mostly government related, as any large firm is doing, especially around the DC area. You don't exist unless it's government work, even if it's state projects. And I've built airports, shopping communities, reconverted naval bases into newer neighborhoods and shopping districts, bridges. I mean, it's just anything you can think of for these large firms I've worked on, as far as putting out the marketing behind it out of my departments, and translating what the architects and the engineers are doing to the client side, which those kind of groups just don't talk well together. They have different mindsets and jargon and industry speak, and so any marketing department is there to translate what the company is doing down to their target and explaining it in layman's terms. And for something like this, over the past several months, with Steve doing the back end, I've been left alone to design this out. This part of the web team just me putting this together and trying to see what is going to work best, and also work when it comes to these components that are built into the site, that they actually function the way that they're supposed to, and not take forever to load, and to make sure that this is going to work properly on a 2-inch iPhone, so that people can still get the information, still see it. I did something that was a darker shade. I was thinking more of like the slate gray with as a chalkboard, white chalk on it, as if it was any other academic setting, putting out the information. I mean, prominent with the orange out of the AE logo that way, so that I'm thinking connoting some of the molten metal that people were seeing. So just all these little subtle areas, but the site does have, for people who might find it harder to read because of that, there is a make it readable button on every page except the front page, which doesn't need it because it's the introduction for everybody else, so that it flips the site to a white page, very large black font text on that page, with some of the images on a white background. So you get it either way. You see the professional, corporate, architectural, engineering look of it on the front to introduce it to everybody else, but then it's easy to read once you click that button, so that people can get the information from the articles and the different pages in a format that they want. Because we have such a different gamut. We have a lot of the AE supporters are a lot older, and so they want to see it a certain way. But then we have this new target market that we're going after to get the information out to everybody else. That we couldn't focus the site on just the tried and true choir member that is coming to the site, because it's self-defeating. We're just going to keep spinning our wheels, and we have to get the information out to everybody else. And I didn't design the site specifically to say what Richard would want or the board would want. This site now actually has a prominent page for the board members, which the old site did not even have. It had an article about it, which had a bunch of older information. But apart from what Richard might have wanted, what the board might have wanted, this isn't even exactly what I would have wanted, because I designed some different things. And if it was up to me, it'd be even edgier and a lot more technology and bells and whistles and getting information out for a different market. But for me as a designer and a marketer, I have to look at what is going to work towards the target market that we have to focus on. And this is what we came up with in April on our web team, was coming up with the parameters for that market, which are new people, a younger market, and now specifically targeting people with smart technology so that they can actually get the information out and do this on the go when they're waiting in line, because you see everybody just looking down at their phones now. Nobody reads books anymore. Out of all of us, we came up with the focus, which the board approved at the time, is that new people for a new investigation, we have to bring in new people into this organization, because that's how all nonprofits exist. Without members and donors, especially being a 501c3, you just don't exist without that kind of support. And we have to bring in new people, and we have to get this information out further than the choir spinning its wheels. And we needed something that was going to be more professional for an architecture and engineering group, as we are with those kind of petition signers on there. It just made sense to actually show some architecture and something being built specifically, which is the rebirth of the World Trade Center complex, which is used in the backdrop of this main website, so that people know what area we're targeting, because this is what is existing now in its place, on top of what it is that we're talking about with the destruction of the two main towers and then Building 7. So we've got that in the backdrop there of what they've created in its space, and that image in of itself, you can't see it at the bottom, depending on which platform you're looking on. It's got the reflecting pools down there, but it's so that you can see that we're talking about architecture and engineering, but the focus is the information. It's not about the other prolific sites that are out there that just show exploding buildings all over the other place. It's to tamper down, make it a little bit more. So I've heard from several people through emails that the new site is more somber, and that you can look at the information now more like a science site, without all the kind of visual attacks that you would get on who did what, focusing on this person did it. This is supposed to be about the information presented, so that people can make that kind of decision for themselves about the implausibility of the official conspiracy theory, as well as the science that they put behind it. It just doesn't work that well. So to put it in a billboard for people to see as they come to the site and get that information, make that decision, hopefully sign up, take an action, and grow the database and get this information out there so that they could present it to somebody else that might be able to get something going as far as a new investigation targeted that way. At least now we don't look as fringy as some of this other stuff out there, because we have to play with the big boys, because that's who we're going up against. And some people aren't going to like it. Most people don't like change. That's one thing that we know as far as psychology is concerned. But as a few others have said, Facebook changes overnight how they do certain things. Everybody's aggravated first couple of days, but then they get used to it, and then within a few days they don't even pay attention to the changes. They just run with it as if nothing had happened. So as technology advances, and like I said, things happen at the beginning of this year. with Joomla that have changed and updated. This is going to continually evolve. We still have a lot that our old site, which is still available on here as a legacy site with all the information, people still go to it. That site is slowly being migrated over because there's so much of it, about 1,000 articles that have to be pulled over alone. And, with this kind of migration, certain things break and you get 404 errors. But I said we're a very small group, very small when it comes to the volunteers behind the web team. And like Steve has a full-time IT job doing what he's doing for a large corporation, doing exactly this, and I'm doing this aspect of it in the background. Brady, as far as managing all the social media, Rocco's got his day job and what he's dealing with social media on the satellite sites that he's working on and some of the analytics. So, and then Kelly's got the organization to run. So it's a very small team to manage something like this and get it migrated over to work properly. But at least we have a new face. I think something that we can be proud of to put out with some other organizations, stuff that I've held up on contacting a few so that they can come to this new site instead and see that it's a large professional organization based in architects and engineers, degreed personnel that are serving as whistleblowers for their community, for their profession, and challenging, the perceived notion of what happened on that day, especially when it comes to physics and how science works, what Newton said so long ago.
And I'm afraid we're going to have to end it there. We are out of time, but the website looks great. Again, it's AE911Truth.org. It's got a whole new look, but you guys did an awesome job. I want to thank you for all the work you've put in and the work you're going to keep on doing. And again, thank you for coming on 9/11 Freefall.
Thank you.
This program's on every Thursday night on No Lies Radio at 10 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Pacific. You can also download MP3s of this show from the Internet Archive by going to 911freefall.com. This is Andy Steele saying have a great week and good luck.